Hello, class. It's Miss Roberts here, and today we're going to go over the introduction of public speaking, what the class is about, and introduce you to the transactional communication theory. Let's begin. All right, so welcome to public speaking. I'm really glad that you've chosen to take this class. I'm really glad to have you. Now, with public speaking, it can make a lot of people nervous. In the next lecture that I will do, we'll discuss how to speak with confidence. But I want you to know that we're in a learning environment, that the goal of the class is for you to have a good experience and for you to take these skills onto your next adventure, whether that be another class and or your careers. So let's talk about what public speaking is about and demystify, make it a little bit less scary. Now, public speaking is an organized, face-to-face, prepared, and intentional attempt to inform, entertain, or persuade a group of people, usually five or more, have a larger audience, through words, physical delivery, sometimes visual or audio aids. Later on in the semester, we're going to take a deeper dive into several of these elements, such as how to speak to inform or persuade a group. How do we use our bodies and our voices to create a more polished physical delivery? And how do we use aids such as audio-visual aids? Now, with public speaking, we are gaining the attention of an audience for a particular amount of time. You have the option of going back and forth or joining a group or a panel in public speaking as well. And this class is going to be a little bit different because this is online in nature. So you will be, like me, taking a camera, pointing, shoot, and creating your presentations. This is one way to deliver a speech, but of course, we want to transfer these skills to an audience as well. So in this semester, you will be doing just that. So here are some features of public speaking. What makes public speaking different than other forms of communication, such as face-to-face or just online public speaking? Now, with giving speeches, we are more prepared than a conversation. We're going to take a deeper dive later on in the semester of the different types of ways that speeches can be organized and delivered. But there is usually preparation involved, with the exception of impromptu, of course, but we are thinking about what we're going to say, organizing our speech, then delivering it. It is also more formal than conversation. With conversations, there is a back and forth, an ebb and flow to the conversation. Now, with the exception of maybe a job interview, with public speaking, you are more formally dressed, your language is more formal, you're not using slang, or if you do use slang, it's very intentional and it's catered to the audience that you're speaking to, but you're preparing in advance and you're speaking more formally. And then there's also more clearly defined roles. You get to control what happens in the time that you have the audience. You have a captive audience. You can talk to your audience throughout the whole time. You can have a back and forth, do question and answer. You get to control that space for that particular amount of time. But then you have responsibilities as a public speaker to provide good information, have the best goodwill, and engage in ethical practices with your audience, which we'll discuss later on. But just like, say, for instance, teacher and student, you as the public speaker have a more clearly defined role. So, why are you here? Why are we making you study public speaking? Well, just like any other skills in life, mathematical skills, or writing skills, or critical thinking skills, public speaking is a part of the skills that we will need to have in life to help guide us and get us further in life, whether we're giving presentations to your employer, whether you're speaking in front of a religious congregation, maybe you are speaking in public to congratulate someone or a celebratory speech. It's one of those few skills that you can take with you anywhere. So let's explore a little bit further. First is empowerment. So, like I mentioned before, with the clearly defined role of the public speaker, you are in charge. For some of us, it might be a little bit scary, but for some of us, it might be empowering. So you provide the resources, information, attitudes, and shape the attitudes of your audience. You get to set the tone or the vibe of what goes on in that public speaking space. And with critical thinking, you have to put information together, organize the information, and deliver it to the audience that they can use or gain from. And as far as employment is concerned, we are more connected than ever, and we have more of a global audience than ever. Think about the impact of social media. Think about the impact of platforms such as Zoom and others. Employers expect you to be able to communicate the messages of the company and be that representation. So no matter which career you decide to pursue, public speaking and speaking to different audiences and stakeholders are a part of it. Next, we're going to explore the transactional communication theory. Now, in many of the courses that I've taken and many of the courses that I've taught in communication studies, this is usually the first thing we talk about. Why do you think that is? When we think about communication and what it is and what theories and ideas are splintered from the social science that is communication studies, it's broken down into audience or the other participant, whether it be source or receiver, sender or receiver, the message, what is being conveyed, how it's being conveyed, what's the situation, feedback, and outcome. Now we're breaking a conversation into different elements. And here are some of the elements. We have the source and receiver, sender or receiver, depending on which text you look at. And we are both encoding and decoding messages. So with the message that we receive, we are receiving those messages and we are trying to decode or make sense of the message that we receive and determine how do we use it. We also have the message itself, whether it be the verbal or written message, what is actually being said. And we also have nonverbal communication, such as tone of voice, body language, eye contact. We'll be exploring these a little bit later in the semester, but this is a part of that communication. Who is within this conversation, source and receiver, and what is the actual message verbatim and the nonverbal messages that are conveyed or while that's being conveyed in the conversation. And then we have channels, and channels can be a lot of things. So, for example, we can have verbal communication with audiovisual channels. We can talk on the phone. You know, what's the generation here is like this one or this one. You can communicate via text message or instant message or video chat. There are many ways that we can send messages and have conversations, and those are called channels. But then we have context. So context can also mean many things, such as the environment. So where are you at the time when you're sending these messages? Are you there at the same time? Are you receiving or sending messages at different times? What is the situation? What is the context of the communication? And then there's also feedback. When this theory is being developed, it was being developed into parts. So earlier models depicted communication as an arrow, as in sender to receiver. But as we develop the model more, communication is an ongoing process. So even in silence, that communicates something. So feedback is the verbal and nonverbal messages that the senders and receivers and the source and receivers are constantly giving each other in the context of the conversation. And then what's the outcome of the conversation? What happens afterwards is what is the purpose of the conversation. And finally, we're going to just take a look at this model. If you notice right here, there are two depictions of faces, and we also have different representations right here. Just to backtrack a little bit, when we think of noise, we can think of noise as being something like this. An interrupter where there's actual physical sounds that is interrupting the flow of conversation, or we have internal noise or internal interrupters. So for example, say if you're in class and you're hungry and you're sleepy and you're doing your best to listen to the teacher, but because you have physical needs, it's impeding on your attention span. Or maybe you got into an argument with your friend the other night and you're trying to pay attention, but you still keep thinking about that argument. It's those psychological or physical interrupters that can cut or impede the conversation or the actual noise. So that is what can happen in communication that can interrupt communication. But we have the senders and receivers that encode and decode the information. So we receive the information and interpret and figure out what to do with the information. And we have the channels. So this is the way that the messages, both verbal and nonverbal, can be received. So the message is the verbal and nonverbal communication, the actual message itself, the channels and the way that we get the information. Each sender and receiver encodes and decodes messages. Sometimes there can be interrupters or noise. And if you think about this picture as its own box, in some models, that box can be the context or situation. So what's the environment? Are they there at the same time? Are they there at different times? Excuse me. Are they Yeah, they're there at the same time or they're at the different time, excuse me. But yeah, so that is the transactional communication model. We're going to stop the video right here. So let me go ahead and go back to full screen. Now, of course, this is a brief introduction to the class, but in the next couple of videos, we're going to take a deeper dive into public speaking. We're going to take in even further exploration into becoming more confident public speaker, ethics, delivery, and different types of speeches that we'll be doing. Again, thank you so much for being in the class. I look forward to listening to your speeches. All right, thank you so much. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.